Hi, and welcome back yet again to my channel. And if you've never been here before, welcome. I do a lot of reading books here, and I also take walks, cook food. I kind of do a little bit of everything. But today I thought I would sit down and talk about some of my absolute favorite, what I consider to be underrated series of books that are on my recommended list, which is, books that I am recommending to you if you are interested in the sci-fi and fantasy book genre. And I didn't write a script because I never do. I just sort of babble and ramble at everyone. But I brought out the examples of my books. Two of them are young adult, and the rest are adult fantasy, sci fi, fiction. I'm not actually going to be recommending any of Anne McCaffrey's books because I think if you've ever been to my channel, you can probably tell I already really like Anne McCaffrey. I been reading Anne McCaffrey for a very long time now. And I think the only series that she wrote that I still haven't read, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, is her Duna series. I have never read that series, and it's one that I don't even own. But of the Anne McCaffrey books, that's the only one, the only series I haven't read. I know she wrote one book called Black Horses for the King, and I don't think I've read that one. Or if I did, it was a very long time ago. But pretty much everything else in Anne McCaffrey's huge, huge bibliography I've read. So we aren't going to be talking about Anne McCaffrey today. And we aren't going to be talking about one of my other absolute favorite authors, which is the late, great Robert Jordan, because right now I feel like everybody is talking about Robert Jordan and the Wheel of Time because of the new TV show, which I have not seen because I don't have Amazon Prime. I don't actually have any streaming services. So I've been relying upon kind of Daniel Green and his channel to see the clips that he shows. But um, I figured I would show you and talk a little bit about some of the other absolutely fantastic series that maybe you haven't heard of. Because, I mean, despite the fact that the sci fi fantasy genre is so big, it also seems like it's so small, at least with the stuff that appeals to me. Now, going far back in time, Mary Stewart wrote The Crystal Cave. It's a very good book. It's the King Arthur legend, but it's more about Merlin rather than Arthur. And this first book starts with Merlin as a child, and then it goes through his entire life. It's a 3-book series, and it's very, very good. If you've never read it and you like the whole King Arthur things, I would definitely suggest it. Like I said, it's The Hollow Hills, The Last Enchantment, and The Crystal Cave is that trilogy. Very good if you're into the King Arthur legend, but you kind of want to see it from a different angle. So that's one. Another, and this one I feel like is more popular just because Brandon Sanderson, after he finished up the Wheel of Time books, became a little bit more popular. But don't let, if you haven't read any of his stuff on his own, I would suggest that you start with Mistborn. It's a really good series. He wrote, it started as a trilogy, and then he wrote a few more that go after the first 3 that I didn't really enjoy as much. But Mistborn, The Hero of Ages, and The Well of Ascension are a fantastic story. And what I love about Brandon Sanderson and his writing is he not only crafts a beautiful world that you can kind of just get lost in, but every book of his that I've read, he comes up with these really unique magic systems that I have never seen before. I mean, maybe I'm just not that well read, but and the Mistborn book was it is self-contained, and I think that's why I was disappointed with the second trilogy that comes after the Mistborn series, because I didn't think it was necessary. He also wrote his debut novel. If you've never seen it, it's called Elantris, and it is a fantastic, it's a pretty quick read. It's only maybe 300 pages, and it's a very wonderful little self-contained book. But it's not a series, which is why I didn't pull it out along with this. But Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. You should be able to find this in any bookstore or online. And if you're into interesting magic systems, sci-fi, fantasy, and kind of more of a not a grimdark, but more of a gritty feel to a book, I would definitely go with that one. Now, my absolute favorite author at the moment, and one that I tell everybody to read. Not everybody listens to me, but I do tell everybody to read it. And I don't have the first one because right now I loaned it out to a friend who is reading it. But it is Kristen Britton. She is an amazing American author. And the first book is just called The Green Rider. This is book 2. It's First Rider's Call. I have all of them. There are 8 so far in the series. And if you like magic, but not too much magic, if you like horses, if you like a really well-crafted high fantasy world with a lot of history that you can get into, little bit of romance. In fact, that's the only disappointing thing in this series, is the fact that your main character's love interest, or main love interest, at least in the fandom, is of course the one that I just don't ship at all. But you know, spoiler free, it's such a good series. You're following the adventures and misadventures of Kerrigan, and I'm not even going to attempt to butcher her last name because it's almost as good as Anne McCaffrey's names. And it's just, she is a very flawed character. She is a very relatable character, and it's a fantastic series. I don't want to go too much into it because I feel like this is one, if you like Anne McCaffrey, if you liked any horse stories as a kid, if you liked any of those grand adventures, even along the lines of The Hobbit, anything like that, you would probably love this series, at least in my humble opinion. So this is probably, like I said, she is my favorite author at the moment, and I cannot recommend these books enough. So we will move on to the book that I was so excited to get. And if you've read any of Anne McCaffrey's books, then you will recognize one of the authors in these, because she collaborated with Anne McCaffrey, and that is how I discovered her, and that is Mercedes Lackey. And she's writing with James Mallory. And the first trilogy, it's the Obsidian trilogy. The book is The Outstretched Shadow, and this is your absolute classic, like, high fantasy. You know, you've got your elves, you've got your demons, you've got your grand gotta save the world adventure, but it's done so well. And it's a fantastic trilogy. And then it leads into the second trilogy by the same authors that takes place about maybe 1,000 years later. And it's almost as good as the first one. It's not. I always find that when authors do a second follow-up trilogy, quite often, in my opinion, it doesn't live up to the first one, but it is very good. So, in the first trilogy, you have Kellen, who is a young mage in a very insular city. In fact, this city is so isolated that Kellen is 17 years old and he has never been outside of the city walls because no one is allowed to go outside of the city walls. And it's his adventures, misadventures, and grand adventures in his world. Fantastic series. And like I said, both of the series are actually really, really good, but the Outstretched Shadow, the Obsidian Trilogy, is 120% my favorite of the two series. The Phoenix Saga is good, or it's called the Enduring Flame Trilogy. I always call it the Phoenix Saga because that's in the title of all three of the books. But yeah, the Enduring Flame is good, but where the Outstretched Shadow, the Obsidian Trilogy, I would give it an 8 out of 10. The Enduring Flame Saga, I would give about a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10. All right, and now, really quick, before I babble for too much longer, I'm going to talk about two absolutely fantastic young adult series that I found them when I was an adult. I can't remember who gave me the first one. I do know that the second series that I'm going to recommend by this author is my absolute favorite, and I stole that one from one of my kids. But the first series, and it's by Tamora Pierce, and it is Alana. It's a quartet, it's 4 books, and she actually said that she broke it into 4 books because back when she wrote it, the publishers didn't want to produce just 1 or 2 really big books. So she took the story that she had written and she broke it into 4 parts. Alana is, it's been done before, the trope of it. It's the story of twins, a female and a male twin. The boy twin wants to be a mage. The girl twin wants to be a knight. And knights are not allowed in this world, at least not female knights. So, being twins, they switch places. So it's your gender swap story, but it is done very well and honestly quite differently. And I would recommend it definitely for young adult. I wouldn't toss this book at, say, like a 9 to 11-year-old because there is a little bit of sex in it. There's it's not blatant, it's not a lot, but it is there. So when I would recommend this would be, I mean, and of course you know your own child way better than I would, but I would say that this is probably the 13 and up category for kids books, but fantastic series. You've got magic, you've got swords, you've got sorcery, and you have a seriously kick butt female knight. So, that one. My favorite series by Tamora Pierce is her Becca Cooper trilogy. This one it is again a young adult book. I would say probably 14 and up, probably, just because of some of the issues that it deals with. But it takes place before this series. They are related. Pretty much all of Tamora Pierce's, or a good chunk of Tamora Pierce's books deal with her world of Tortall that she made up. And so they're all kind of interconnected, but not so much that you can't just pick up one and enjoy it. And this book is very interesting because you see the beginnings of how Alana's world got so stratified into only women can do these jobs, only men can do these jobs, because this is back before all that happened. And it follows the adventures of Becca Cooper, who is basically a policewoman back in what feels a lot like medieval times, but medieval times with a lot of magic in it. And it's a very interesting and a very good series. The only thing that maybe I would critique about this series is if you do not like a diary style, then you probably wouldn't enjoy it. The Alana books, in fact, every other book by Tamora Pierce that I've read is a narrative style, but the Becca Cooper books are all written from Becca Cooper's diary. So it it was something that I didn't think I was going to enjoy when I first picked it up and started reading it. And then, honestly, it's my favorite series by Tamora Pierce. So that is it. That is 7 different series. If you are looking for something new to read this week, this month, this year, and you enjoy sci-fi and fantasy, and I didn't put you off of these books by babbling about them in such a general way. I don't really want to give like massive spoilers on any of these books. I just want to let you know that there are some really, really good books out there that maybe you haven't heard of. I mean, I know there's plenty of good books that I haven't heard of, so here are 7 series, and they all have at least 3 books apiece in them. And yeah, if you're looking for something to keep yourself entertained, I think any of these will probably do it. But with all of that being said, um, I'll do the YouTube thing and tell you to give me a thumbs up if you want to. It always makes me smile. Consider hitting the subscribe button if you want to. Doesn't cost anything. Definitely has no calories to it. And I will see you all next time. Have a great day.